Hey Julie, Merry Christmas to you. Thought I'd start with a starter mandolin lesson. We'll do it video. I'll have to put this on YouTube, but let's start with a tune just for fun here. That's a French-Canadian tune called Old French. Anyway, starting on the mando, first thing is to tune. And the main thing about tuning is you want to be sure each of the pairs of strings are tuned identically to each other, as close as you can get them. Now, I do use a tuner. I like these Diodario tuners because you can kind of hide them. They don't show up bulky, and I can leave it on there and you can barely even tell that it's on there if I put it on right. So usually what I'll do is I'll use that tuner to tune one string. Remember, mandolin, G, D, A, E. And you can remember that because it's upside down from the guitar starting on the low E string. If you start on the low E string, remember it's E, A, D, G. So this is kind of backwards from that, which means this is tuned in fifths as opposed to a guitar which is tuned in fourths. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from one string to the next. So anyway, usually what I do is I'll tune with the tuner for the first string, get it as close as I can using the tuner, and then I'll listen. And you can use the tuner on both strings, but you really want both strings in each pair to be the same. And remember too, one other thing when tuning, and some of this may be repeat for you, Julie, but when you tune, you want to tune coming up in pitch, not going down in pitch. That way this string will be tight. And if you overshoot, back it down a little bit and come back up. Try to tune it coming up in pitch. Try to get them to be as close as you can to each other. Holding the pick. I personally like triangular picks, and I like fairly heavy picks. You can't really tell, but this is actually a tortoise pick. It's very stiff, and I like a stiff pick. And I like the triangular pick just because of the size, and also, I think I started using them because maybe I'm cheap, but I get 3 picks for the price of 1. Yeah, they're all the points are the same. So I like these a alternative pick that you can use. If I have one here in my case, let me see if I have one. They're made by, they're called, I may have one. They're the same size and shape as this pick. No, I don't have one in there. But they're made by Dunlop. They're called Prime Tones, Prime Tone Dunlops, and they make them in this triangular shape. They make them in a 1.4 millimeter as well as a 1.5 millimeter, and either one is fine. I've used both, and it's hard. I can tell the difference, but I can play equally well. But I do like a triangular pitch. Not everybody triangular pick. Not everybody does. Picks are very subjective. You get the pick that you like and the heaviness that you like. You will find as you improve that you're going to want to have a heavier pick as a rule, especially playing in an ensemble with other people. most of of the when you pick out a melody, most of the time it's going to be an up and down motion. If you see my right hand, I'll try to get where you can see it. So one exercise that you can do right off is just leave your left hand completely out of it and just 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. It'll also tell you if your strings are not tuned exactly the same. But just 2 strokes on each string. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Do that, going down, going back up, and just get that down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And try it with 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you know, a lot of these exercises that you'll do, think of them almost meditative, because they may not sound in your ear as pleasing, but you know, like for me, especially doing scales, you know, I can get almost into you know, it sounds kind of silly, I suppose, but I can get almost into sort of a meditative state doing those. So get that right hand down. Couple things on your right hand. Some people will plant fingers on. I don't remember. I believe Richard put the pick guard. Me put a new pick guard on the Magic Mando. So some people will plant on that with fingers, and they'll leave the heel of their hand up off the bridge. Adam Steffi, he doesn't have a pick guard, but he will plant, and Sam Bush is the same way. They plant a finger, and so that becomes their point. The thing that you have to have is you can't have this where your arm is contacting the rim of the mandolin as your only point of reference, although David Benedict plays that way, and he's a fantastic mandolin player. And he plays with a very stiff wrist, so his motion, and Doc Watson actually played the guitar that way, his motion is from back here at his elbow, which I don't see how in the world they do it, but they did. But most everybody, with very few exceptions, most everybody needs a point of reference for your hand, and that can be usually one of 2 ways. It can either be planted fingers and the heel of your palm off the bridge, or it can be closed fist, cupped fist, and you have this as your point of contact with the flat part of your palm behind the bridge. You don't want to muffle, but it's behind the bridge. This is how most mandolin players play. This is how I play, although I will sometimes drop fingers down depending on what style of music I'm playing. But cup finger and your point of reference, you know, you have your arm is on the rim, but you have to have another point of reference for your hand, and the motion is from the wrist. You will see some people, Tony Rice, for example, on playing guitar, there were times where he would keep his wrist very still. It's hard for me to do, and it would be fingers moving. I can't do that as well. I've got to move my wrist. Fingers do move a little bit, but just practice that. Find a spot, either this way with palm up or with palm down, and just up down, and do that first exercise we did. Try to keep as clean as possible. The other thing that you want to find on the mandolin, and it's different on every mandolin, is where the sweet spot is. Most of the time, it's kind of right behind the extension on the fretboard, and that Washburn has a little bit more of an extension here than this one does. So you have to be careful that you're not tapping onto the fretboard. But you can tell the difference and just mess with it some. Pick close to the bridge, and then move it away from the bridge, and you'll find where it has the most pleasing tone. And it's not back there. That sounds fairly thin. You know, on this mandolin, that's the sweet spot right in there. You can't really get out here. And plus it's hard for me not to avoid that tapping that you hear. So right in here is my sweet spot on this mandolin. That doesn't mean that that's the only place that I ever play it. That does mean that that's where a lot of it gets played. Let's see. That's what else on the right hand. Oh, as far as holding the pick, I didn't even go over that. You know, and you've played guitar, so you know this again is very personal preference, but you know, this is kind of how I'm holding the pick. I've got a curled index finger, and I've got I don't know, what is that? Maybe 1/4 of an inch of the pick exposed. And you want to pick lightly. You want to hold your pick lightly. You don't want to grip it tight, because then your whole wrist gets tight. One other thing. And I learned this fairly recently from a fantastic guitar player named Kenny Smith. He has some fantastic guitars, and I was at a house concert with the guy. I guarantee probably had $2 or $3 million worth of vintage guitars. And Kenny Smith played at this guy's house in this house concert, so he was playing like these 1936 D18s that are, you know, if they were for sale, you could spend $50,000 or $60,000 easily on them. And he talked about how hard you should pick, even on a guitar like that has tremendous volume. And the point of it is the harder you pick, the tone starts to get thinner. Yes, you can get louder and you can get volume, and it depends on the instrument. But there's a sweet spot as far as how hard you pick, and you want to try to always come back to that amount of pressure. So as you're doing this drill, try to find that tone with where you are positionally here, and how much pressure you're putting on, how hard you pick. So that's about 13 minutes. I'm going to stop right there. I am going to do a second video to do some more things that you can work on, but this is the start. I'll post these on YouTube.